Talk of the Times. Today I have with me 5 special guests: John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Theodore Roosevelt, John Muir, and Hannah Jones. Is capitalism beneficial to everyone in a society? We will be asking this question and more. We'd like to know your thoughts, starting with John Rockefeller.
Well, Wes, thank you for having me. I really do think that capitalism was a great economic system for everyone involved. Federal and state involvement was not necessary. The economy was okay. People in unskilled unions, which were mainly for immigrants and illiterates, were given jobs, including the immigrants from both the Irish wave between 1845 and 1860 and Asian migration wave between 1880 and 1920, who were coming to escape famine, poverty, and their corrupt governments. And through their hard work, we have been able to make the United States an economic power in terms of trading. But, out of all honesty, the government didn't need to be involved. Me and the other major industries had everything under control. And also, before my industry, we did not use oil. But now that we do, oil and kerosene has helped transportation and other industries to make more money, which results in more profit, therefore creating stability and growth for the economy.
President Roosevelt, what's your response?
I definitely disagree. Capitalism wasn't our best economic system. The monopolies and trusts that Rockefeller and Carnegie were having was ripping people off, so the Sherman Antitrust Act was needed. The food and drug industries were unclean and unhealthy, and they were also lying on their labels, giving false benefits.
Carnegie?
I agree with Rockefeller. I really don't think that the government should have intervened because I worked hard to get to where I was. I went from rags to riches. It was my hard-earned business and money.
John Muir, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Well, I am strongly against it. The industrial industries were able to get away with polluting the environment, resulting in putting the wildlife at risk. Thanks to Roosevelt, we created more regulations regarding the conservation for forests, wildlife, and land.
Hannah Jones, where do you stand with capitalism? Was it beneficial or detrimental?
Wes, it's a tough one. I'm kind of torn between both sides. I mean, it was horrible because of the working environments for my kids and husband. The factories were loud, dangerous, and stressful. Along with that, they weren't being paid much, their hours were too long, and they didn't have workers' rights. But on the other side, I'm never really afraid that the stores will run out of food, or the prices will get too high, and I can buy a variety of things for much cheaper. Also, I can buy things from the stores that I would originally have to make, like clothes, bedding, and blankets.
So we can agree that capitalism had its ups and downs. Jobs were created, industries thrived, and our economy was uplifted. But, looking at Jones's stance, we can see that not everyone in society benefited because their kids and husband had to work in poor environments and weren't paid very much. When we come back, we have more questions for our guests. We're back. This next question goes to Carnegie. From your experience, how has industrialism developed in the late 18th and early 19th centuries?
Industrialism was developed through machine-based manufacturing and innovation. As the techniques of iron making began to advance, trade expansion was enabled through railways and canals.
Carnegie, another question to you. How has technology developed through the Industrial Revolution, and how has it impacted us today?
Specifically in my industry, the adaptation of the Bessemer process was a way of creating iron and steel cheaper. I was then able to sell the iron and steel for a better market price, therefore benefiting other industries.
Next question goes to Jones. Earlier you talked about the working conditions for your husband and children. What are the living conditions like?
Our living conditions are not the best. There's usually raw sewage lying in the streets. Our unit, which is very small, doesn't have very good ventilation, so it often smells and is too hot.
This next question is directed to Carnegie and Rockefeller. Oftentimes, you guys are labeled robber barons, along with Vanderbilt and J.P. Morgan. What is your response to that?
I think it's a misunderstanding. I don't think that the people realize how great a benefit that the industries have affected the world. Because of these modern corporations, the United States now has a stable economy. And like I said before, we are employing a vast amount of the immigrants coming in. Also, internationally, we are becoming a large competitor for trade with other countries. And on a side note, I would really like to thank all the hardworking immigrants for their impact on our industrialized country. They all really helped with the construction of the railroads and the extraction of oil.
I agree with him. I feel like the people giving us this title aren't looking at the big picture. Industries like Carnegie's and mine are starting the rise of the modern corporations.
Last question for the night, and it goes out to President Roosevelt and John Muir. How did you guys contribute to the progressive era?
Like I said before, I overlooked the industries and had to break up the trusts. Several large corporations were taking over the market, ripping off other small corporations. Also, I implemented social reform to the food and drug industry. We were slowly changing from a capitalistic economic system to socialism by regulating the content labels, making sure that everyone knew what was in the product. And we also made sure that the food was sanitary.
Mir?
My main contribution was spreading the word for the establishment of national parks and gaining support from the public for conservation.
So, we can agree that the capitalistic economic system that the United States had its pros and cons. But, overall, it is easy to see that industrialism in the U.S. created a worldwide impact. Transportation was better, goods were easier to obtain and were cheaper, and the middle class grew in size, wealth, and education. Alright, well, we're just about out of time. I'd like to thank all of our special guests for coming out tonight, and thank you all for tuning in. Good night.